Before we carry on from where we left off in the part 1 video, I would like to remind everyone who watches this video on how much time and work I put into making big videos like this. Also, because the part 1 video ended up getting copyright claim and forced me to re-upload it in a re-edited form, it lost a few likes and comments as well as the many views it got in the short time it was up. So, if you have come across this video first, it would be recommended that you watch the part 1 video first, as this is the part 2 video where it continues from. And to quote the guest star from the previous video, like, comment and subscribe, you know how YouTube works. Okay, and the Dark Knight Returns continues from Book 3. Hunt the Dark Knight opens by presenting us how the power vacuum after the defeat of the mutants has been filled with different new gangs. Like these Brunos trying to rob a liquor store, and Batman intercepting them in this rather questionable disguise.
I do like Bruce in this outfit, like, thief! You thief! Thief and leave and sells this for $2.50!
Looking at the Bruce is supposed to be tall, and the perspective in the page makes it look like
he's hunched. I'm pretty sure he's just
hunched, and probably we're not exactly probably on his knees, somewhat in a very hunched position to sell that to be shorter than he actually is. As Batman in his disguise chases after Bruno, the news go over how there is a situation in Corto Maltese, but no one cares enough to pay attention to it because Batman's activities are more interesting. Robin is shown disobeying orders in distracting Bruno, which fortunately sends Hanet into an abandoned building where Batman confronts Bruno in wanting to interrogate Häntä, but is denied of getting any information out of Hänestä because Superman arrives as foreshadowed by all the other panels.
We have to talk.
I'm busy. It cost me hours of work my place in the morning. Until then, stay out of my way.
Superman leaves, and next we see more news talking about Batman, the new gang called Sons of Batman, and Dr. Bartholomew Wolper complaining about how his patients are Batman's victims. After that transitioning, we are shown simultaneously how Batman and Robin are investigating another lead on Bruno's boss, while Commissioner Gordon is having his retirement party where his replacement is sworn in, and Ellen Yindel's first action as the new police commissioner is to issue an arrest warrant for Batman, which, according to a quick Wikipedia search citing this 2008 faculty scholarship essay, cannot be issued by a police commissioner, but rather it needs to be issued by either a neutral judge or a magistrate, meaning that Commissioner Yindel not knowing that makes her warrant null and voided, or Frank Miller didn't have a proofreader to patch up this gap in his knowledge. Well, Batman and Robin just barely avoid a death trap while the Joker can't sleep knowing he has successfully gaslit Dr. Wolper into getting him released the next day, and get him to appear on a talk show. In the morning after the night of helping the emergency services with the victims of the explosion, Bruce meets up with Clark Kent as they agreed, with Clark getting straight to the point of their meeting.
You have to go back into retirement. You're upsetting too many people. Why do you always have to be like this? Look, either shut it down or one of these days someone with authority is going to tell me to come stop you. And when that happens,
may the best man win.
Their meeting is then interrupted when Clark hears the president talking about Soviet jets combating the American forces and is forced to leave, while mentally going through the conversation as it would have continued, and doing something very questionable when dealing with the Soviet jets. As Bruce tells Alfred to cancel all his other engagements and send them monetary compensation for being stood up. Meanwhile, the Joker is being visited by Abner from Book 1, whom Batman was trying to find to interrogate the previous night, and who tells the Joker that everything is set for his talk show appearance while giving him nose plugs.
Wear 'em tonight and only breathe through your nose.
And all these years I just held my breath.
Both Commissioner Yindel and Batman are shown to be preparing for whatever will come from the Joker's talk show appearance, to which the Joker is allowed to take his own contraband.
More on the eyes, please.
You want lipstick too, handsome?
I brought my own. Thanks.
Wonderful to see you showing such interest.
After having picked up Carrie, Batman and Robin use the Bat-Chopper to observe the Joker's appearance into the talk show is not named until later, but regardless, Batman ends up wasting his time fighting Yindel and her cops also staking out the talk show, meaning that while they are busy fighting amongst themselves,
Our special guest, the clown prince of crime, Joker.
the Joker is uninterrupted to show up in his appearance,
I'm gonna kill everyone in this room.
confess what he is going to do, and then actually does it without anyone stopping him. With poisonous lipstick and a flying doll drone spewing his Joker gas that then carries the Joker away into freedom, while Batman barely escapes from Yindel's cops thanks to Robin once again disobeying his orders.
I'm not fired.
You're not fired.
And now the Joker is at large again, which causes Commissioner Yindel to pick up smoking again after 5 years off, while Superman is fighting for the Americans in Corto Maltese. The first place the Joker decides to hit first is Kyle Escorts, run by an aged Selina Kyle, whom the Joker brainwashes with his lipstick to send one of her girls to brainwash and another senator to
We have to strike first! We're the most powerful country in the world! Sir, please.
In the aftermath of this scene, Batman manages to successfully impersonate an officer to learn from Commissioner Yindel.
O'Halloran, 6th Precinct.
Lieutenant,
Any way I can help?
this wasn't a suicide. The girl upstairs has been drugged. Says she's from Kyle Escorts.
That's Selina, Kyle, my old beat.
Shut it down and bring her in.
Yes, ma'am. Commissioner? Lieutenant O'Halloran, ma'am. Heard there was something wrong?
Stop that man!
And Batman then manages to just barely flee away before the officer he is impersonating shows up. While Batman and Robin are racing to get to Selina's escort services offices, Superman fighting in Corto Maltese remembers this line Batman had once told during a Justice League group interview.
We are criminals, Clark. We always have been.
Which is not entirely untrue when acknowledging that vigilante activity, which most superheroes tend to do when going out of their way to fight crime, is illegal criminal activity. And apparently the Justice League was disbanded sometime after that interview, around the same time Bruce initially retired from being Batman. At Kyle Escorts, Batman and Robin discover Selina Kyle bound, gagged, and whatever else the Joker did to her that has been left for imagination. But otherwise she is able to tell Batman what she can about how the Joker is going to kill the governor, and Robin discovering cotton candy points them to the county fair where the Joker's skill count could reach thousands. Batman and Robin hurry on their Bat-glider while needing to get past the arriving Yindel and her officers, but also report to her that he needs her to make sure that the governor will be saved while he goes after the Joker. Yindel does as Batman asks of her, and Superman keeps ing up in Corto Maltese, while his inner monologue goes over a one-sided conversation that he clearly wanted to have with Batman as Clark Kent and Bruce Wayne. The Joker at the county fair is also having a similar inner monologue conversation with Batman about how much he loves the fact that Batman has kept count of his victims, the amount of which he is in process of increasing by handing out poisoned cotton candy to children. By the time Batman and Robin arrive, those children are laying dead on the ground, which makes Batman feel how horrified Robin is in seeing her aged victims on the ground. While they scout for the Joker at the fair, Lana Lang is still defending Batman in the TV debates by how Batman has not killed technically anyone yet. To which her opponent on the anti-Batman side, what the hell was this guy's name? Attempts to link the Joker coming out of a decade-long catatonia into Batman's return. Batman and Robin then spot the Joker and Abner at the roller coaster and land at them as the pandemonium hits the fan with a smoke bomb. Batman goes after the Joker while Robin goes after Abner. Robin does what she can while she is also mentally processing all the deaths that have happened at the fair. as well as how many of them she can still prevent while trying to stop Abner, which in looking at her struggles really does look hard with her inner monologue commenting about it, while Batman is also pursuing the Joker and maiming him with Batarang to show that the gloves are off.
Are you out of your mind?
Commissioner Yindel is reported on the news to have been successful in rescuing the governor from strangling himself, and the Joker responds in kind to Batman's pursuit in managing to fatally shoot him to the gut. On Robin's end, she manages to use her slingshot to get rid of Abner's doll drone Bob, and then shockingly, while trying to keep herself from being strangled, Robin ends up pushing Abner to fall into his death neck first. Meanwhile, the wounded Batman has fought his way through the Hall of Mirrors, and is now swimming his way into the Tunnel of Love where the Joker has escaped to. Struggling, he manages to capsize his boat before the June Nemesis fight again. The Joker stabbing Batman to his gunshot wound, and Batman in a weakened state reaches for his neck to do whatever he is able to. I will talk more about the results of this fight later, but as it is witnessed, it looks like Batman snapped the Joker's neck as he hears the fleeing voices calling him a killer. In the end, Batman is left alone, bleeding in the wet and cold darkness, with the Joker's laughter still echoing in there, soon to be replaced by the police sirens coming for him.
You're in trouble now. Go ahead. Say this has never happened to you before. I win. I made you lose control, and they'll kill you for it. See you in hell.
Book 4. The Dark Knight Falls opens with a strike force heading into the Tunnel of Love, where Batman has left a final you to the Joker's remains, while also using it as a distraction to buy himself more time to call Robin and have her secure their escape from the cops. Also having to flee from the news chopper, Robin manages to get to the Bat Chopper while Batman blows himself a new exit from the Tunnel of Love, with some struggle as he has not used guns much even to set off C4. Once he is outside, Robin provides cover fire by blowing up one, hopefully, unoccupied police car, before lassoing Batman into the air as they make their escape. The damage has still been done as Robin's reported presence has added child endangerment to Batman's charges, and the Joker's remains that cannot be given a proper autopsy to determine the cause of death anymore also add murder in there. The next page and a quarter is confusing by suggesting that Batman showed up to stop an assault, of which the would-be victim is interviewed on, while the next page shows Batman on the operating table with Alfred tending to his wounds. The news talk more about the Sons of Batman gang, who seem to have used extreme prejudice to stop a convenience store robbery by another gang inspired by Richard Nixon. The news then goes forward with the mutants who were arrested at the end of Book 2, still in holding cells watching the TV, which then gets interrupted by a special news report about how the Soviets have pulled out from Corto Maltese and are such bad losers that the President of the United States has taken shelter in the bunker under the White House wearing a hazmat suit. Superman, knowing what this means, flies up into the air to intercept a missile sent by the Soviet Union. While Superman struggles with it, Gordon is shown to be in the middle of picking up groceries for his wife Sarah, when he, along with everyone else, sees the news about the missile, which Superman manages to direct to blowing up above an uninhabited desert zone. Then we get a plot twist of how the missile seemed to have an EMP warhead instead of a nuclear warhead that sends the entire United States back into Middle Ages without power and electricity. Batman's inner monologue reveals that both the Americans and the Soviets have been developing a missile like that called the Coldbringer, and being angry at assuming that Superman allowed the Soviets to accomplish this attack on the US ends up providing Batman with a miraculous recovery. With that, he leads Robin to the stables, while the locked up mutants get agitated enough without the TV to keep them pacified, to overpower their guards and escape, while a plane blind in the air crashes into a building in Gotham, in setting off the next wave of panic and pandemonium, of which the Sons of Batman plan to take an advantage of before...
These are loud and clumsy. These are the weapons of cowards. Our weapons are precise and quiet. In time, I will teach them to you. But for tonight, you will rely on your brains and your fists. Tonight, we are the law. Tonight, I am the law.
The following events show how Batman and Robin, along with the gang calling themselves as his sons, stopped the mutants from escaping and coerced them into added riot control force to force the panicked Gothamites into calming down by having these events being framed through the people who lived through it.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, I am here to appeal to your community spirit. I know you've had your differences in the past. Some of you will even argue that you can't work together. That's fine. Those people will stay tied up, and it will not be a function of which group you're in. The rest of you can lend a hand to keep our city from falling apart. You can lead by example. Your choice. I'm sure you're all eager to help.
Gordon is also shown in the middle of the chaos as his apartment building has caught fire, and has to use his leadership skills to organize a bucket line to put out the fire, while also being worried about the whereabouts of his wife Sarah, with whom he luckily gets to reunite when most of the dust has settled. Commissioner Yindel and her officers witness all of that as it is happening, and so she comes to understand what Gordon meant with his war story about President Roosevelt.
What are we gonna do?
Nothing. He's too big.
Superman is shown struggling in the fallout of the nuke that took so much of his solar energies to survive, and in the absence of sunlight to recharge his powers, Superman is reduced into leeching the same energy from sunflowers and other vegetation that also gets nutrients from the sun. 1 week later. The news are reporting how the Soviet Union's Coldbringer missile has left the United States in the middle of a nuclear winter, with only Gotham having been able to keep order thanks to Batman and the Sons of Batman gang holding it. Around this time, a one-armed Oliver Queen has arrived to visit Bruce and call him out for having become too loud with his activities, and those he is making look bad as Batman are going to come after him.
You always did do it wrong, Bruce. Been 5 years since I busted out of jail. And you know I've been busy, but I made it hard on them. They had to cover up my escape. Now they have to cover up my work. And it's a lot harder to frost me if they can't admit I exist. You draw too much attention to yourself. Always have. I mean, sure, you play it mysterious, but it's a noisy kind of mysterious. They have to kill.
What is it you want, Oliver?
I always knew it would come down to the two of you someday. The world's not big enough for the both of you. A piece of him. Doesn't have to be a big piece, for old time's sake.
Oliver foresees that as Superman has become a government stooge, it will most likely be him that they send after Batman, and tells Bruce that he wants to participate in his eventual counterattack when it happens, using his missing left hand as justification in implying that Superman is the cause of it.
Still hurts when it's cold.
Not long after that, when Bruce is overseeing Carrie's horseback riding, fire from Superman's heat vision is blasted from the sky to ask the question of where Bruce chooses to face him.
Crime Alley.
The following page is a montage showing multiple things happening at the same time as a setup for what will happen next, with Bruce, Carrie and Alfred preparing for a fight with armor, weapons and a capsule, which Bruce's inner monologue mentions needs to be taken within the correct timing, as well as the news reporting that the US Army has isolated Crime Alley at the East End district of Gotham. The news also almost mentions Superman, but the feed is cut in the middle of his name being said. When it's all about to go down, The last conversation the armored Batman tells Robin when leaving her in the Batmobile is,
I mean, you gonna die tonight or what?
Figure I will.
Batman next takes a pragmatic false start to his incoming fight against Superman by having placed 6 Hunter missiles that are activated to attack Superman when he scans the area with his X-ray vision, and then has Robin charge at him with the Batmobile to test out just how much Superman has recovered from the Coldbringer missile.
Isn't this a school night, young lady?
As Superman, after dealing with the Batmobile, heads to confront Batman, Alfred is shown doing his part in setting up the Scorched Earth part of their battle plan. And then we get the part that has been, since this book's publication, become a signature scene in it. Superman approaches Batman in attempting to settle this peacefully. Or so Batman assumes, because his helmet mask is isolated from outside voices, so he can, warning to headphone users, do this. Batman then proceeds to beat Superman up while listening to his own inside voice, one-sidedly roasting Superman for being a yes man to those with authority. Superman eventually recovers enough and manages to pull off his helmet to unmask Bruce, who keeps on fighting while mentally roasting Superman, who is obviously holding back, and so manages to punch Bruce off his feet. At the same time, Oliver's presence is discovered when the soldiers accompanying Superman engage with him, forcing Bruce to play more time by blinding Superman with what he still has on his belt. By the time Oliver gets into a proper aiming position, Superman is really pissed off. So it is at the literal 11th hour when the synthesized green kryptonite arrow is fired at them, and Superman is made weak again for Bruce to beat up, while Robin collects Oliver to the Batmobile to make their quick getaway. And Superman opens his mouth in actually trying to talk to Bruce. Those blue boxes were Superman's inner monologue about how he can hear his heart about to give up.
In all the years to come, in your most private moments, I want you to remember the one man who beat you.
And then Bruce's heart gives up to have him die in the middle of the fight to a cardiac arrest. Almost poetically at the same time, the same thing happens to Alfred, who, after having set up both the Batcave as well as the Wayne Manor to self-destruct not to leave any evidence of Batman's activities behind, suffers a stroke in also leaving this world.
Don't touch him.
Give or take a few weeks later, Bruce Wayne is buried with Clark Kent, Selina Kyle, and James Gordon attending his funeral.
I know who killed him, damn you!
Selina, don't. It's no use.
The news expositions about how his identity as Batman is now public knowledge, as well as him having not only taken his secrets to the grave, but also the Wayne fortune, as his stocks have been sold and bank accounts emptied. The news also reports that Bruce's body was claimed by a distant cousin, and since Kate Kane had not been invented yet at 1986, this cousin in a widow's shroud attending the funeral is implied to be Carrie Kelly in disguise, having ran away from her absent-minded parents only seen briefly in books 1 and 2, and having now fully joined Batman's crusade in helping fake the death of Bruce Wayne with a chemical agent. Clark notices this when Bruce's heart starts to beat again 6 feet under, and winks at Carrie before leaving her to dig Bruce up now that everyone else has left the funeral. The Dark Knight Falls ends in the expanded cave system of the former Batcave, where Bruce, Robin, Oliver Queen, the Sons of Batman, and the remaining mutant gang members start to set up shop for that quieter activity that Oliver told Bruce he should adapt after having been too loud.
This'll be a good life. Good enough.
Okay, and now comparing the art when Frank Miller is working on it alone without Klaus Jansson. Yeah, Frank Miller's own drawing style here is something difficult to describe, but it gets the job done with the characters and the backgrounds. The style he used in this comic is what most likely eventually evolved into the drawing style he is more known for in Sin City and the follow-up story The Dark Knight Strikes Again, with Lynn coloring also complementing it well enough that, well, it works for what it is. The patience Frank Miller must have had along with the support while drawing this is also something that I feel obligated to salute him for 38 years later. He managed to get so much done with less details and then knew when to add more. As someone who doesn't draw much anymore, I wish I had the same drive that Frank Miller used to have when doing this comic. Okay, and now let's talk more about the story and the characters in the last two books. AKA the way how the story continues in book 3, with the Joker having managed to manipulate Dr. Wolper into getting him released, and the GCPD now led by Commissioner Yindel in deciding to focus on Batman as an illegal vigilante. I suppose that is a way of balancing how the Joker would know how to talk his way to escape Arkham, while the police would view Batman as a priority target to capture, but not being able to juggle hunting them both at the same time. Batman on his end seemed to be portrayed to be actively focused on preparing for anything the Joker would do once out of Arkham, and even the Joker's influence before his talk show appearance seemed to be pushing Batman to make it stop. Fast forward to the end of book 3, the violence and the ferocity with how Batman pursued after the Joker and fought against him was something that was portrayed with both of them possibly knowing that this was going to be their last battle. So the Joker was doing everything he still could get to do before Batman would eventually catch him and do whatever it is that actually happened here. And when it comes to book 4, Superman let Batman win by holding back throughout this entire fight in his confirmed to be weakened state. And Batman would not have even gotten this far if Superman had not been holding back, being weakened by the Coldbringer nuke, and if Green Arrow was not there to fire the green kryptonite arrow at Superman to weaken him more. This was not even the first time Batman and Superman have fought in the comics, but I do recognize how it is framed with angles that are used to make Batman look good while beating Superman up. The fight also lasts about 6 pages, which could easily be counted as 5 with these big panels, so I would say it was not exactly a long fight. I wouldn't even really call it a Batman vs Superman fight, but rather a Batman, Robin and Green Arrow vs Superman fight. The recreated fight in Batman v Superman Dawn of Justice Ultimate Edition seemed to acknowledge all of this, by having it be between just those two characters, being as long or a little longer than the comic version, and by having Superman win the fight by talking Batfleck into forfeiting.
You're letting him kill Martha! Find him! Save Martha!
And let's use that to segue into talking about Batman's psychology. In the part 1 video, I called it a balancing act between Bruce Wayne and Batman, and Bruce Wayne is shown just once per book, with Batman being unmasked not counting. With how little Bruce Wayne is shown in both books, and in a hurry to get back into being Batman, while ignoring Bruce Wayne's responsibilities in book 3, Batman has clearly taken over Bruce's psyche to compensate for that decade of inactivity, while still holding on to the belief of what Batman is supposed to be with his no-killing rule, and that may be something that people relate to him unknowingly, like how most people usually take from the ending of book 3 that Batman broke the Joker's neck to paralyze him as a compromise, and the Joker then twisted it all the way back while giving Batman his last laugh to frame him for his murder. Yeah, now let's talk about that. In the recent years, another interpretation has come up from observations on how the Joker's speech bubbles after he has been paralyzed are colored grey, similarly as Batman's inner monologue boxes and Batman's own speech bubbles. In contrast, the Joker's own monologue boxes are green, Robin's boxes are yellow, and Superman's boxes are blue. This would implicate that Batman did not paralyze the Joker, but did indeed kill him by snapping his neck without realizing it. Acknowledge that leading up to this point he has been shot and stabbed the stomach multiple times, and he has lost a lot of blood to the point that he would be going by pure adrenaline. Then there are the witnesses calling Batman a killer as they are fleeing away from him and the Joker, while Batman just stands there doing nothing as the Joker talks to him and then kills himself. The only witnesses to the outcome where the Joker snapped his own neck is just Batman himself, and in the opening of book 4, the SWAT team coming across the Joker's corpse immediately rule out suicide. Batman could so have killed the Joker without realizing it, and was so sure of his code not to kill that he gaslit himself into believing he didn't. That is how unbalanced Batman has become by overcompensating without Bruce's more compassionate side balancing his psyche. But there is also a third outcome where both outcomes can be argued to have happened. The fact that the Joker's remains get burned in the opening of book 4 and no one likely bothers to give it an autopsy to confirm what really killed him, the actual cause of death is left as a riddle for the ages without a clear answer. All we are left with is the GCPD believing, not knowing, that Batman killed the Joker, and Batman believing, not knowing, that the Joker killed himself. But otherwise, there is no concrete answer to what really happened. And personally, I believe that is for the better. And those who believe in Batman being an uncompromising hero type can have their cake, while those who do not fan worship Batman in acknowledging his flaws can also have theirs. And Chip Zdarsky's Batman run, where the mainstream Batman got to ask the Dark Knight Returns Batman about it, long story, remains just as valid because this is what Batman himself believes happened, not what has been confirmed to have really happened. But with Bruce having been gradually pushed to the shotgun seat and then to the backseat of his psyche, make Superman's attempts to reach out to him by that name, without getting any responses from Bruce under Batman's dominance over it, really sad. As a small silver lining, the only thing keeping Bruce from being metaphorically locked in the trunk is Carrie, who, as a breakout fan-favorite character of this miniseries, is an interesting case to have, but when looking too much into how she exists outside of being Robin, she is first rescued by Batman in book 1, while also witnessing the bat signal being lit for the first time, becomes Robin to save and join Batman in book 2, but then in book 3, there is this panel where Alfred is shown picking Carrie up from school, with her friend Michelle witnessing it. What are the implications here? Carrie's parents in the previous books are presented as absent-minded hippies, who are implied to have forgotten that they even have a daughter, so by what off-panel process did Carrie's guardianship move from her parents to Bruce Wayne? Like, I can understand how a side plot of Carrie's parents being caught as neglectful parents and losing their custody of her would not have fit in, but some acknowledgement to how Carrie became Bruce's most recent ward would have been a needed reference, because otherwise this scene of Carrie being picked up from school by Alfred, with Michelle witnessing it, would come across as questionable, what with her being a 13-year-old girl and being picked up to meet a 55-year-old man. This is now one of those cases where a few tie-in issues to flesh out Carrie's character and her relationship with Bruce as his latest Robin would have been needed, because otherwise she just comes across as a good idea that was not executed much. The best we have is our imagination fueled by this one good moment where Bruce fatherly watches Carrie riding a horse before Superman rains fire from the sky. And when it comes to Superman and Commissioner Yindel, I think I'll talk more about them when comparing their portrayals in the animated movie. So let's move on to that now. Okay, Jay Oliva and Bob Goodman were still on board in making this second half of the adaptation. And in taking it forward, they brought new members to the cast, with Mark Valley voicing Superman.
Everyone else agreed. Diana went back to her people, Hal left the planet.
And Oliver.
That's not how I wanted that to go.
And as I already said in the part 1 video, Maria Canals Barrera as Commissioner Yindel.
He's twice your age, son. Find the nerve.
And Michael Emerson as the Joker.
I thought I was Batman's psychotic obsession. Oh, that's bad. You should get that looked at when you have a chance.
Grady Lisle was also cast as Gordon's wife Sarah to give her a more physical presence in the movie, rather than just being shown in silhouette on one page after having been spoken of.
The groceries? Now?
Wanna eat tonight?
While Yuri Lowenthal was the leader of Sons of Batman,
Gotham is helpless! We will take charge! We will kill anyone who stands in our way!
and Tress MacNeille reprised her role from The Simpsons as the elderly Catwoman.
He's worse than ever. He's using lipstick. Mind control.
The talk show host David Endorkin is also voiced by Conan O'Brien.
Do guests get to keep these?
Sure, you do whatever you want with it. We got a closet full of them.
And guess what? Peter Weller is doing his utmost best to make them sound better than him. You know that officer Batman was impersonating?
Lieutenant O'Halloran, ma'am. Heard there was something wrong?
Stop that man!
Apparently, he was voiced by Frank Welker, and now I can't stop imagining how this movie could have gone if Megatron was voicing Batman in it instead of Robocop.
Do as I command!
Okay, and with that voice cast talk out of the way, I might as well repeat what I already said in the part 1 video about how turning inner monologue into spoken dialogue is not always the compromise you might need. It worked out in turning Gordon's mental confession to no one about how he gets through everything by thinking about his wife Sarah, into have it be a part of his retirement speech to have his wife physically present and show Sarah as an existing character in the story. But then there is how Superman's inner monologue on what he wanted to talk to Batman as Bruce and Clark is added as dialogue to extend their conversation, where it ends up making no difference because the story needs to move forward to its set conclusion. And that seems to unintentionally be done to make Batman's takeover on Bruce's psyche even worse, without having the movie acknowledge it with his inner monologue. This reminds me from when I compared the Tower of Babel to Justice League Doom 2 years ago, and ranted about how it was done mostly on the premise of making Batman look good by Batman worshipping fanboys and fangirls. Not that I am accusing Jay Oliva and Bob Goodman of such, but when we acknowledge an adaptation as a retelling on another media, those two must have made conscious choices on what to cut out and replace in this their version of The Dark Knight Returns. Such as making the final fight between Batman and Superman a longer spectacle where they talk more, and making it clear that the Joker lives to die by his own hand without any ambiguity in the situation. That former example just makes Superman look better from the extreme logical conclusion he was represented as from the pre-crisis Superman, with whom Frank Miller must have grown up with. The latter one, with the removal of Batman's inner monologue and making him say what he thinks, makes it clear on what level Oliva and Goodman are in Batman's fan club in trying to make Batman look better. It also extends to the portrayal of the Sons of Batman gang, as they are not shown shotgunning a rival gang or doing what the news said they did in the comic. You know why I decided to use Grandma Reunion from Nier Replicant as the transition song in leading up to this segment? Besides knowing it shouldn't get this video copyrighted, I used it because after having read the comic multiple times for both part 1 and this video, as well as rewatching the video of going through it with Robert, I have come to recognize The Dark Knight Returns more as a tragic story of Batman losing his initial humanity as Bruce Wayne, something I pointed out in both the review sections of part 1 and this video, with Harvey Dent being a foreshadowing reflection of it, and something that Jay Oliva and Bob Goodman did not pay attention to as much as I seemed to. Fun fact, Frank Miller revealed back in 2018 that one of the 3 endings he had planned for the comic would have had Batman die from being shot by Commissioner Yindel, probably as an alternative to her recognizing that Batman is
too big.
I'm not sure if it would have been a tragic or a bittersweet ending, considering how Batman's remaining enemies had been taken out and the Sons of Batman had been course-corrected into a more peacekeeping direction. His mission in Gotham was, for better or worse, completed, with the final confrontation with Superman being more of a spectacle at the end, and Yindel being the one killing Batman would have been reasonably a fitting end to her character arc, with the principles she was set up to have, and probably coming to see her mistake too late, along with what Gordon's story about President Roosevelt and Pearl Harbor meant. That way, Dark Knight Returns could have also been left as a standalone series, without having the Dark Knight Strikes Again or All-Star Batman and Robin the Boy Wonder having been done along with it. Then that other third ending would have been a more extreme version of the final ending, where Superman would have brought Batman into custody alive, without Green Arrow shooting kryptonite at him. Ultimately, Batman would fake his death with a chemical peel while in custody to get rid of his Bruce Wayne identity, and so be Batman full-time in leading the Sons of Batman with Carrie as Robin. Most of that still happens in both the comic and the animated movie, but the animated movie is less self-aware about it and makes it portrayed more as a good thing. This could have been a censorship issue, along with how some of the stronger dialogue is also cut from the movie, and how Bruno is wearing pants to cover Hanen ass. Or it could have been how Jay Oliva and Bob Goodman saw the comic representing Batman at the end of his career. That being said, it would be disrespectful of me not to point out that Jay Oliva uses a still image from the Part 1 movie as his Twitter X profile picture, meaning that he must be both wearing the fact that he directed this adaptation as a badge of honor and must be holding a positive opinion on the comic. But even then, he and Goodman still completely ignored the psychological impact Batman had on Bruce's psyche with his character arc, and I assume more people who watch the adaptation over reading the comic won't pay attention to Batman's psychology either. I know Linkara barely acknowledged it from what I saw of his comic review from a few years ago, but that guy has a long-running and one-sided antagonistic relationship with Frank Miller, so that might have been an issue of bias. Christopher Nolan, from what little he adapted into Batman Begins from year 1 and this comic, included the psychological aspects which were then further empathized when Batman got hit with the Scarecrow's fear gas. Also, having covered BVS scene for scene 4 years ago, I can say that Zack Snyder obviously acknowledged those psychological aspects to include them in Batfleck's character arc in it. Speaking of which, as my editing from back then has gotten better and I have covered both this comic and the Death/Return of Superman, I wonder if I should remake that review series for better quality and do more to avoid getting it copyright claimed again. Okay? And now let's rush the video's ending by doing a list on the remaining adaptation changes. Number 1. This blind man falls to the subway tracks on an accident before Superman saves him, rather than being pushed over there over a flimsy misunderstanding by this jerk. Number 2. Batman and Robin looking for Abner and almost getting blown up is cut. Number 3. Well, the movie tries to explain why Carrie is spending time with Bruce by having her tell Michelle it's an after-school job.
It's this night job. Details, as in more. Just helping some spud. It bore you.
Okay, it's explained
Gotta fly.
as a... like with how Batman
Alfred.
Beyond explained Terry working for Bruce as a after-school work. That might have worked with Terry McGinnis in Batman Beyond, where Terry was 17 and close enough to be seen as a young adult, but Carrie is still a 13-year-old. Number 4. In the Joker's talk show appearance, we have this one guest cut out, and the Joker kills Dr. Wolper in a much more violent way.
Sure, you do whatever you want with it. We got a closet full of them.
So long as you won't miss it.
Number 5. All those kids that the Joker killed with poisoned cotton candy at the county fair have been cut out, and Carrie is not traumatized from having seen their corpses when she fights Abner, even when she accidentally kills him in a more violent way. Shot fired projectile or the roller coaster. It's machine powered. Oh, this is a much more what happened in the Number 6. The chaos and pandemonium caused by the Coldbringer missile is presented more in real time, rather than being told after the fact by the people who survived through it. This also includes showing Sarah as Gordon's wife, and some pictures of characters from Batman Year 1 to connect those two animated movies together, along with a Barbara Junior cameo. Number 7. President Ronald Reagan lived through the Coldbringer, unlike how the comic implies that he died, and his death was kept as a secret by showing disguised Superman refer to this other guy implied to be George W. Bush as Mr. President. Number 8. The rest of the movie is relatively the same, with the inner monologue again being turned into spoken dialogue, and with some other added dialogue to bridge the scenes and character interactions.
Were you a friend?
I think so. I honestly couldn't say.
Sounds about right.
And Oliver's presence in the ending scene is made more obvious in the movie than in the comic. But now as we come to the end of talking about The Dark Knight Returns, I can't help but to think about how Frank Miller has become older than this old man Batman he created for the comic. Also, in 2023 we had Michael Keaton in his early to mid 70s reprise his role as Batman in the Flash movie, and while the character's age was not brought up, it was likely close to what the actor's age was, aka 2 decades above Miller's old man Batman. This, along with how the mainstream Batman has also been aged up or made to be older with his growing family of sidekicks. It really shows how The Dark Knight Returns is a product of its time from the 1980s in how people used to age back then compared to now. Look at how the years had not been kind to the elderly Selina Kyle in the comic, and compare her to Julie Newmar and Michelle Pfeiffer today as another example. The Dark Knight Returns has not become dated, but it is, again, definitely a product of its time with how it is told and how its characters are portrayed. It could not be retold set some years later in the early 2000s or in the 2020s, and that is why the adaptation was also told set in the 1980s. And if Zack Snyder gets his chance to do that proper live-action adaptation that he has said he wants to do, he would have to do the same. That has so been what I have come to see in The Dark Knight Returns, and what people like Jay Oliva and Bob Goodman seem to recognize in it from my perspective. There can be different things that other people can see in it, so you might as well do that thing expected from the audience here at the end of the video. Like the video and comment what thoughts have awoken in your mind about both the comic and the adaptation, share this video for more people to see, and subscribe to my channel for other videos I plan to make in the future. I will also be doing gaming streams on Tuesdays and Thursdays, so ding the bell to be alerted for them in case you wish to chat with me, and may your heart be your guiding key.